Hi everyone, my name is Shannon. I teach some classes here at Embodied Art Studio, and today I am rescuing some brushes. So I'm cleaning ones that are already dry, and I thought why not give some tips on how to take care of your brushes, because they are one of our most important tools when we are painting, so we want to keep them happy so we are happy when we're painting with our happy tools. So let's get to it. I'm going to show you how to take care of your brush, how to clean them, and how to rescue them if you ever need to do that as well. Okay, some do's and don'ts when you're painting with your brushes. And it's okay, like I see this happen all the time, and you're in it and you kind of like forget about taking care, and you might have like a ton of brushes, so it's okay if it happens. But I see a lot of students, sometimes they're painting and they leave maybe they used green on their painting and they set their brush aside and leave paint in it. So why we don't want to do this is because the paint's going to harden on your brush, and it's just going to wear and tear over time. If you keep doing this, it's going to harden your bristles, and it's just going to aggravate them, so they won't be as soft, and they might get separated a little bit more. Another thing I see a lot is even just leaving the paint on there and just dunking it in your paint and leaving it. So the paint is really, it's gonna still stay on your brush. I'm gonna grab this and show you, but the paint it's gonna stay on the brush even though it's sitting in there. Yes, it might be a little looser than if you were to just leave it on your palette, but you want to make sure to clean it out. And what I've been doing more recently than ever is actually really cleaning it out and taking it out of my water bucket and cleaning it out on my towel. I like to kind of like squeegee it out. If you can kind of sandwich a towel and have this area for really like squeezing it out and then setting it aside. I know it's kind of like a pain in the butt, right? It's a lot to do when you're painting and you're having fun. You don't really want to take care of your brushes, but the more you do it, I promise, the better your brushes are going to be in the long run. So that is a don't, and a do. Clean it out and set it aside. I understand if you're like continuing to use a certain color, that's okay. Just don't leave the paint on there for longer than it needs to be, basically. I'm being such a little like painter mom right now. This is funny. Another thing I've realized with the pointed brushes are like, you want those to stay good for longer, right? Because you really need that point for certain things, whether it's like little details like whiskers or eyes, or maybe you're like, even like sometimes I do some text and like I need that point, right? So it's more important than ever to really take care of your pointed brushes with those same rules I demonstrated. And also I realized, this one doesn't quite have it so much, but I recently like came across one of my like nice pointed brushes at home where it was curved. Which was like so odd to me. I was like, why is it curved? And I realized, and this goes back to not leaving it in the bucket as much, that when I left it in the bucket, it was curving at the bottom. So at the bottom of the bucket, it looked like this, right? So if you do that over time, your brush might end up curved. So that is a mystery I recently solved. An artist had told me. So if you end up with a curved brush and you're like, why is my pointed brush curved? That's so odd. That's not what I wanted to do. It's because you're leaving it in the bucket. So really like clean out your pointed brushes and set them aside. I like to give them a little like twist and twirl on my towel so that the point hopefully comes back, and I set it aside. So that's important for your pointed brushes and all brushes really. So taking care of them, maybe you know this already, but you just need like a friendly reminder to keep doing it. Keep taking care of your brushes. Don't leave them in the paint. Don't leave them in the water if you can help it. And yeah, just a clean brush is a happy brush, so make sure you're keeping your brushes happy. So of course there's sometimes we're in a rush or what have you, and you didn't clean your brush well enough, or maybe you just like forgot and left it aside and didn't clean it in time to get the dry paint off. First of all, you are forgiven. I do it all the time. So sometimes I really just like want to rescue a brush. We're gonna call it like a rescue brush mission here. So what I like to do is I'll grab my brushes, maybe I'm in the mood for doing a deep cleaning, and I'll grab my brushes that just need a little bit more cleaning. They're doing okay, but maybe there's a little bit of dry paint in them, and maybe like they're feeling a little bit more crispy than usual. So what we're gonna do is we're going to rescue some brushes. Our brushes are doing pretty well, but maybe let's try and just rescue like 4 of them, and I will show you how. Okay. So what I did was I got some really hot water going in my sink. I left it on there to get it really hot for a little bit. If you don't have your hands on like getting like really hot water for whatever reason, like maybe your sink like doesn't get that hot, you can maybe like boil some water, but before it boils, like I would set it aside and let it sit. I don't think you would want boiling water in here, but just like nice and hot, right? Just like we take baths to relax our muscles and loosen them up a little bit. We're gonna do the same thing with our brushes. So I got the water really hot. I put Dawn soap at the bottom of it and then filled it up with the hot water. And the hot water should loosen up our paint and loosen up our bristles. And I didn't put that much in there, maybe just like 2 inches or so. We want to just like have it so the water is high enough to where our brush, the bristles, and also I like to kind of like clean this area of it too. Just enough so the water is like at least like covering that bit so we can clean it a little bit. And I am just going to let it sit for a little bit, like maybe like 20 minutes or so. So we're gonna set this aside and I'll show you how to clean it properly once it's taken its little brush bath. Okay, so it's time to clean out our brushes. This is my bucket of revival here. I'm gonna rescue these 4 brushes. And then I also am just going to clean the 2 brushes I just used to demonstrate some do's and don'ts while you're painting. So just wanna clean these out now since I just used them. The faster you do it, the more the paint will get out easier because it hasn't hardened at all. So what I like to do, and this is just Dawn soap in here, I like to use a little bit of Dawn soap. I've heard differently, but with some people that just like to use like hot water, that's fine too. But like I've always used Dawn soap, and I was always told to use Dawn soap when I was in college as well. I was told that it loosens up the paint in there, so it gets it out really a lot easier. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on some hot water. Just let it go in here. It gets warm fairly quickly, and then I'm going to just put some soap in my hand. And what I do is I just swirl it around in my palm like this, go a little bit back and forth with the shape of the brush. It might be nice to, you know, maybe do like 1 at a time. Sometimes I'm a little impatient, and so sure everyone can be. And then I start to massage it out, and you can see some of the dirt kind of, not dirt, sorry, paint coming out of the brush. And I also just like to kind of like massage this part too. It's nice to kind of keep it like shiny. Can't help but like pick off paint too. I don't know if anyone finds that like really satisfying, but I'm gonna keep going, and I have some soap left in my hand. I'm just gonna keep going until there's no paint left in the brush. Like I can't see any paint coming out. And then I'll set it aside to dry. Now, I don't have the room and don't have, it's mostly like a room issue, but I always flip my brushes like this. I set them aside to dry like this. I was working in, turn this off for a second. I was working in an opera company house for a little bit in Salt Lake, and I saw that the man who was the main painter for all the backdrops, I saw him drying his brushes like this. So this is a sponge, but he was using like, I'm not sure, maybe like a towel. He folded it up, and what he told me that did, I want you to try this out. If you're having the issue, and I think this brush was having the issue, that's what reminded me of it. It's getting a little loose, right? It hasn't popped off yet, but if you're having the issue of your tops popping off, I've heard that the reason behind it is because when you dry it like this, the water from the bristles will drip down and loosen up the glue in this area. So it's just like an adhesive problem to where it's being loosened up and it pops it off. I just glue it back together. And I haven't really had an issue with it, but I just wanted to share that secret because I thought that was kind of cool that we had really nice brushes when I worked there, and we just kind of like had them all separate, but I have so many students and so many brushes that I don't have the room or the time to have them all like line them up, and I just don't, you know, I just pop them back on with some glue. But try it out, all right? I wanted to share that secret with you because if you're like super frustrated and you want to stop that from happening, I'm super curious. Draw your brushes like this. Let me know how it goes. It worked like pretty well when I was in the opera company house, but that is just from the assumption that this is like actually preventing it from happening. So try it out, and let's get to cleaning I didn't actually clean this brush, so let's clean this brush the same way I just taught you how, and then we're gonna rescue our brushes. If you have a towel too, I kind of like to just take a towel and squeegee it out so there's not a lot of water like dripping down in the brush, especially if you're drying them like this. Okay, time to rescue our brushes. I have my water bucket here. It's starting to get a little bit cooler. It was taking its little bath, and let's just do this big one. So I'm gonna take the soap off so everyone can see. It's really like not that dirty. It's pretty nice. It's probably pretty soft too. But let's just see what happens when I do the same thing. I'm gonna clean it the same way, but I'm gonna be a little bit more picky with it and a little bit more aggressive. So I'm gonna clean it. I'm gonna really massage it with my hands, kind of like back and forth a little bit, especially if there's like some paint stuck in there, and really start to swirl it around in my hand. So I can always tell what color paint was in there. Give a little twist, but can you see the pink in the soap? Can always tell like what like hard paint was in there, even if you can't see it when you start to clean it, and you're like, oh wow, there was a lot of pink or blue in there, what have you. So I start to, you know, really clean up the metal part too, because especially if you leave some paint like near this metal part and the bristles, it starts to harden at the bottom, and it just kind of like creeps its way up to the top of the brush. That is very important. So cleaning that out, and then rinsing it off just like I would with another clean brush. And that's it. I like to make sure that I'm like kind of squeezing my bristles together. Hopefully they dry in that direction, because I want to keep that shape as well as possible. Let's do it with a smaller one that is a lot harder. I picked out this brush, and you can see it's already kind of like worn a little bit. It's supposed to be a little square brush, but I keep these around because I never know when I need them for like certain textures. Like with trees, I like to keep like more used brushes around because I get those like fun kind of organic marks. So I'm gonna do the same thing with this brush. Just grab a little bit of soap this time, and it was sitting in the soap, remember. I'm gonna swirl it around on my hand, and because, like I guessed, this brush had a lot more paint on it, it was a lot harder. You're gonna see a lot more color come out of it. It's kind of like this pinky purple color. I think that's it. So I wanted to just make a short video on keeping your brushes clean and reviving them if you ever need to rescue them. So I'm gonna practice what I preach, and I'm gonna take really good care of my brushes this week and make sure I'm cleaning them right away after I'm done painting, and just taking care of them while I'm painting as well. So if you loved this little tip and you want to get more of them, make sure you ring the bell and follow Embodied Art Studio so you can get some more beginner acrylic painting tips from us. And if you ever have any requests for techniques you'd love to see, comment below. We would love to hear them, and we'll keep seeing you in our studio here. This is Embodied Art Studio, and my name is Shannon. Thank you so much for watching.